Little Women 2019 film. Little Woman is a 2019 American film written and directed by Greta Gerwig. It's the seventh film adaptation of the 1868 novel of the same name by Louisa May Alcott. It's about the lives of the Marsh sisters, Jo, Meg, Amy, and Beth, in Concord, Massachusetts, during the 19th century. Sony Pictures initiated the development of the film in 2013. Gerwig hired to write its screenplay in 2016, using Alcott's other writings as inspiration. She was made director in 2018. Little Woman premiered at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City on December 7, 2019, and was released theatrically in the United States on December 25, 2019. These Little Women, the latest of many adaptations, is fashioned a story that feels at once entirely true to its 19th century origins and utterly modern. Alcott starts our history during an austere Christmas. Gerwig changed that and starts with Jo 7 years later, visiting a New York publisher for her book. The rest of Little Women zigzags between the lives of March sisters. Alcott begins her story during an austere Christmas. Gerwig changes it and begins with Jo 7 years later, visiting a publisher in New York to publish her book. The rest is a zigzag between two periods in the lives of Jo and her family. Little Women is interesting for the way Alcott approached the institution of marriage. Alcott is truly modern when she imagines the March sisters as independent women, not wealthy but free to pursue their own happiness at a time when women of their status often relied on the fortunes of their boyfriends or a generous inheritance to provide for their future. The plot of Little Women is well known. The book tells the story of the four March sisters during the American Civil War. Page after page, the author tells us how each of them undergoes the change from adolescence of adulthood. As an iconic story and one of the best-loved books in American literature, it has undergone several revisitations over time. Greta Gerwig's Little Woman is a strictly personal reinterpretation that manages to be extremely respectful of the original. The director, who also wrote the screenplay, has taken a number of liberties, not least with the ending, which in this version is completely different from the classic one. The director remains faithful to the body of the story, but modifies its structure by introducing a meta-narrative. The first meta-narrative aspect is found in the character of Jo March. At the beginning of Gerwig's film, Jo is a writer who makes do with publishing average short stories, despite her innate talent. During the course of the film, Jo matures as a person and as an artist, and learns the art of extracting a story with care and attention. This meta-narrative aspect is completely absent from Alcott's novel, although the autobiographical element was never hidden by the author. Although the writer has never married and Jo's character has, their stories are very similar, both in content and spirit. For this reason, it's interesting to see Gerwig bring the two stories together, bringing the character definitively closer to her creator. In this way, moreover, the director can overlap the rather clear message of the film with the traditional message of the novel, without one excluding the other. The 2020 film version of Little Women makes another change to the original structure of Alcott's novel. Whereas the book begins with the celebration of Christmas during the war, when the girls are still very young, the film opens with a 25-year-old Jo March interviewing a publisher in New York. The film then proceeds by great leaps in time, preferring an in-depth look at individual characters rather than a linear narrative. The March's Christian faith plays a big role in the original novel, but in 2020 film version this element does not take up as much space. In Alcott's Little Women, the book The Christian's Pilgrimage appears several times, and the father of the protagonist in the film, played by Bob Odenkirk, is a reverend. In any case, the great presence of the Christian faith lies in the March's daily commitment to caring for others and to always being kind and charitable. An important moment in the story is the act of altruism towards the Hamels, a poor immigrant family, whom the girls, together with Mrs. March, frequently visit. By not naming their religious faith, Gehring allows the view to focus more on the actions of the protagonists than on their spiritual motivations. From this point of view, Gehring splendidly interprets the message of Alcott, who believed in practice rather than preaching. By retaining the narrative element of the March's charity, but decoupling it from Christian faith, the director makes the adaptation more open and inclusive. Finally, the big change in Gehring's film is the final marriage proposal Professor Bayer makes to Jo, and the final kiss in the rain. In a Little Women book, Professor Bayer is older and less attractive. The change serves to give a happy ending with a handsome knight.